Was Jesus really supernaturally born of a virgin? Some say the word used for virgin in the Bible really means something else. They say in the original language, the Hebrew word for virgin can simply mean a young woman who is old enough to be married. So who's right? Was Jesus' birth supernatural or not? Did people in Jesus' day think Mary was really a virgin, or did the story evolve into a legend over time? Believe it or not, there is actually a way to investigate how the word virgin was originally understood in the Bible. So, let's get to it, let's investigate. Sometime around 700 BC, a guy named Isaiah wrote something really provocative. God appeared to Isaiah and told him that he was going to send a future Messiah figure through a virgin birth, or a young maiden, depending on what your current theory is. The verse in question is Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, which says, "The Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." That word Emmanuel means God with us. In fact, you can actually find a copy of this scroll online that dates from 125 BC. It's pretty amazing. Later in the New Testament, Luke would quote this passage to link it to Jesus' birth. So it's really important that we figure out how people defined the word virgin during this time period. If Isaiah just meant to say the Messiah would be born to a young girl, not a supernatural virgin birth, well, that kind of changes the Christmas story, doesn't it? How can we find out what Isaiah really meant? There are two things we can do. First, we can look at other verses that contain the word virgin and see what it meant there. In Hebrew, the word Isaiah used for virgin is almah. It's a vague word that some say means young woman, not virgin. The popular claim you'll hear is that if the author really meant virgin, he would have used a more precise word, betulah. Why don't we fact check them and see what we find? Genesis chapter 24 used the term virgin, and in this story, Isaac was going to a well to look for a wife. That is an interesting place to look for a date. Look at what happens when he sees Rebekah for the first time. Verse 16 says, "The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up." Here, the word used for maiden is betulah, and you can see that the context really does refer to a virgin. But there is something else here that you should see. What happens later in the story when Isaac meets Rebekah's dad? He's going to retell how he first saw her at the well, the apparently hottest dating spot around. Genesis 24:43 says, "Behold, I am standing by the spring of water. Let the virgin who comes out to draw water, to whom I shall say, 'Please give me a little water from your jar to drink,'" and it goes on to tell the rest of the story. But you see the word virgin here, and I wonder what the Hebrew says. Let's find out. This time, the word used for virgin is not betulah. It's almah. Uh-oh. The argument that almah doesn't mean virgin, it doesn't totally work. Sometimes it really does mean virgin, and sometimes it means a young girl of marriageable age. The word almah is used in Song of Solomon chapter 6 verse 8 in its plural form, and here it seems to refer to a class of women who would be good candidates to become a wife or concubine of the king. The cultural context points to almah meaning virgin here. So which did Isaiah and Luke mean when they talked about the future Messiah and Jesus? We can find out. There is a copy of the Old Testament in Greek called the Septuagint, and it was written somewhere between 200 and 300 BC, before Jesus was born. They translated this word almah into Greek, so we can look and see how they translated it. Did they translate it into something that means virgin or young maiden? What this will do is it will tell us how people originally understood this story back when it was written. And the word used in the Greek Old Testament for virgin is parthenos. It's not very helpful, is it? We're gonna have to look it up. It turns out parthenos is the Greek word for virgin. And there are a couple other places in the New Testament where this word was used. so we can double check and make sure that this word really was understood as virgin in the Bible. I don't normally use the King James Version, but I think you're going to want to see what it says in 1 Corinthians 7:36, because other translations sort of censored this passage. But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely towards his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and needs so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not, let them marry. I'm pretty sure you guys know what pass the flower means. In that context, virgin really does seem to mean virgin. But the ESV interestingly changed pass the flower to if his passions are strong. The King James verse really is more clear about what this verse really says, but come on ESV, we're adults, give it to me straight. A final place we can look for a definition of Parthenos is Greek mythology, where this word refers to Athena Parthenos, the virgin goddess. Matthew at least clarified what people were saying about Mary in the 1st century. In Matthew chapter 1 verse 25, Joseph did not know Mary until after Jesus was born. Knowing someone was a common euphemism at the time, so Matthew is clarifying that Jesus' followers believed Mary was a virgin. If that's not enough, Luke 1:34 is a verse we can look at, because when Mary found out she was pregnant, she said to the angel, "How can this be, since I am a virgin?" We could plug the words young woman in place of virgin here, and you would get, "How can I be pregnant since I am a young woman?" That really doesn't make a lot of sense, especially because we know Mary was of childbearing age at this point. Now we can pretty confidently say that the Christmas story was originally meant to be understood as a miraculous birth. But let me know if you find this evidence convincing or not in the comments. I understand this can be a difficult story to accept and hard to believe. If you're still struggling with it, I would recommend pausing here and moving on to investigating what Jesus said about who he was and who the people closest to him believed he was. To start looking into that, check out this video next. Merry Christmas, everybody.